Hello, Aaron. I decided not to write an email and try to answer SPSS questions in an email because it usually doesn't work that well. So I'm sending you a video instead, and I will show you how you should be running your tests. So I have your data here. So this is your data, and I suspect what you've been doing or what you have tried to do is to click on Analyze, go to Non-Parametrics, Independent Samples. You go to Fields up here, and you put your results in the dependent variable box and your oil and intervention in your independent. You click on Run, and of course then you get a silly output because it gives you one p-value for everything, which of course doesn't make any sense and it's not useful at all. The problem is that the specific test can only do one comparison between two variables at each time. And although these are labeled very nicely, when we give it as a variable oil and intervention, it cannot distinguish between the subdivisions that you have within this variable. This means that if we want to compare between this condition, the first three rows, three replicates of the same condition, and this condition, rows 4, 5, and 6, then everything else, so everything below this row has to go. So I'm selecting everything, deleting everything, and I only have the two conditions that I want to compare. And then of course you do exactly the same thing. You go to Analyze, you go to Non-Parametric Tests, Independent Samples. You have to remember at this stage to reset every time you start a new test. And you do the same thing. You take your results here and your oil and intervention here, and you click on Run. And of course now you will get a completely different p-value. In this case there is absolutely no difference. The p-value is 1, but that doesn't matter. I did more examples, more combinations, and I did find very strong significant values. When I say very strong, it was 0.001, which, because remember you have to use the more strict p-value, but that means that you will still have significant differences even when you use a strict cutoff p-value. So this is how you do it. And then what I do is to click on undo. So this is again your original data. So we did 1, 2, and 3 here against 4, 5, and 6. Now we can do 4, 5, and 6 against 7, 8, and 9. Yeah. So we need to remove everything else. We need to remove this one, and we need to remove everything. Yeah. So another way to check that you're doing the right thing. I personally prefer to work like this because you've done the labeling, so it takes me a while to understand which conditions you're comparing, whereas with numbers it's much more clear to me. So the first test that we did was between 1 and 2. Now we're doing between 2 and 3. And we do exactly the same thing. We go to Analyze, we go to Non-Parametric Tests, Independent Samples, we click on Reset, we take our results here, we take our oil intervention here, and we click on Run. And you get a different p-value. So this is what you have to do. And I remember very clearly that you said to me that you don't mind clicking and tapping, which is great news because there is a lot of clicking and tapping in this process. But at least it works, and at least we know what we have to do. One last thing that you need to be careful with is when you generate individual outputs, SPSS labels the results with the name of the variable, like here. it doesn't give you the exact name of the condition. That means that after the second one, you will start losing the plot and you will not know exactly which conditions um, you have compared. So what you can do is, I just double clicked here and it activated the window. So what you can do is to add a line further down and say that it was 1 versus 2 or something like this. So label it basically the way you want it. So now I know that this table here is for interventions 1 against 2. Actually it's 2 against 3, but I'm just making a point. I hope this makes sense. You can choose to have all outputs in one file and do this kind of labeling here where you type in the different conditions, or you can have a separate output for every single combination and name the output, the file of the output, with the names of the conditions. That's entirely up to you. Personally, I prefer to have everything in one output, but it depends on how you want to work. So I hope this is a bit more clear now, and I really hope that SPSS will not give you any more hard time. If it does, just leave me alone, please. Yeah? No, only joking. If it does, just give me a shout and I'll try to help. Okay, enjoy. Bye bye.